The bathroom mirror was fogged up. Ryan wiped it with the palm of his hand, leaving streaks of water running down the glass. He looked at his own face. A hastily shaved beard, a small cut still bleeding on his chin. Damn it! He grabbed a piece of toilet paper and pressed it against the wound. 8:15 in the evening. He was late. His white shirt was laid out on the bed, the only one he had without visible stains. He'd ironed it that morning before leaving for work at the auto shop, but the day's sweat had left marks in the armpits that his deodorant couldn't completely hide. He put it on anyway. He had no other choice. His hands trembled as he buttoned the cuffs, calluses on his palms, clean nails but stained with grease that regular soap wouldn't remove. He applied cream, trying to disguise them. It didn't help much. From the next room came the sound of video games. Ethan, his 12-year-old son, was immersed in some online game with his friends. Ryan knocked on the door. "I'm heading out, okay? There's food in the fridge if you get hungry." "Okay, Dad, good luck on your date." The boy's voice had that tone of someone more interested in the game than the conversation. Ryan smiled to himself. Better that way. Less pressure. In the living room, he picked up his wallet. He counted the bills. $240. It was all he had until the end of the month, with 8 days still left. But Andrew, his friend from the auto shop, had insisted so much. "Man, you need to get out of this rut. It's been 2 years since Megan passed away. You can't stay alone forever." And he'd set up the date. A friend of Andrew's girlfriend. "She's nice, Ryan. Works retail. Regular folks like us. You guys will hit it off." Ryan didn't want to. He wasn't ready. But he was also tired of coming home to only silence. Tired of eating dinner alone after Ethan went to sleep. Tired of waking up in the middle of the night and reaching his arm across the empty side of the bed. So he had accepted. He caught the bus at the stop. It was crowded. He stood, holding onto the metal strap, swaying with each sudden break. He looked out the window without seeing anything specific. The city passed in a blur of yellow and neon lights. The restaurant was downtown. It wasn't too expensive, Andrew had assured him. A decent place, but not over the top. You'll feel comfortable. When he got off the bus, it was 8:35. 20 minutes late. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to fix it. He smelled the cheap soap mixed with deodorant. He hoped it would be enough. Before we dive into this story, leave your comment with a rating from 1 to 10 and tell us what city you're joining us from. May this moment bring reflection and emotion to your heart. The restaurant's facade was discreet. A small sign, soft light spilling from the frosted glass windows. Soft, instrumental music playing quietly. Ryan took a deep breath, pushed open the glass door. The air conditioning hit him immediately. It was cold inside. The atmosphere was more elegant than he expected. Tables with white tablecloths, lit candles, a couple talking quietly in a corner. Another couple laughing at something he couldn't hear. A man alone, checking his phone. The waiter approached. Black suit, red bow tie, upright posture. Ryan immediately felt out of place. "Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, I do. Under the name of Andrew? Or maybe Chloe. I actually don't know whose name it was made under." The waiter consulted a clipboard. "Table 12. This way, please." Ryan followed the waiter down the aisle between the tables. He felt eyes on him, or maybe it was just his imagination, the paranoia of someone who knows they don't belong. His boots clattered on the hardwood floor. Work boots, the only ones he had. The waiter stopped in front of a table in the back. It was empty. "Your companion hasn't arrived yet, but please, make yourself comfortable. Can I get you something to drink while you wait?" "Water. Just water, please." "Sparkling or still water?" Ryan hesitated. He didn't know there was a price difference. "Still." The waiter made a note and walked away. Ryan sat in the chair, which was more comfortable than any furniture he had at home. He looked around. The table next to him had an older couple. He was in a grey suit, she in an elegant navy blue dress. They were talking about a trip to Europe. Ryan fidgeted with the cloth napkin. It was soft. Fine, probably cost more than his shirt. He looked at his watch. 8:42. Was she not going to come? Had she given up? Worse. Had Andrew given her some description of him, and she'd decided he wasn't worth it? That's when he saw her. 2 tables ahead, slightly to the left. A woman alone. She was looking at him. It wasn't who he expected. At least he didn't think it was. Andrew had said, "Brown hair about your age." This woman had brown hair pulled back in a simple bun. She must have been in her mid-30s. A discreet light beige dress, nothing extravagant, no jewelry except a thin watch on her wrist. But there was something in her eyes, a curiosity, perhaps recognition. She smiled. It was a small, shy smile, but it was clearly directed at him. Ryan looked behind him, checking if it wasn't for someone else. There was no one. He looked back at her. The smile remained. Crap. Was it her? It had to be. Andrew must have shown her a picture of him. He stood up, his legs trembled a little. He walked to her table. She followed his every move with her eyes. "Hi. Sorry I'm late. The bus was delayed and—" "It's all right. Have a seat." Her voice was soft, polite, without a discernible accent, but there was a quality to it that was hard to identify. Confidence, serenity. Ryan pulled out the chair and sat down. His knees bumped the table, making the glasses clink. She smiled again, but not mockingly, with genuine sympathy. "You're nervous," she said. It wasn't a question. "A little. It's been a while since these dates." "I'm nervous too, but for different reasons, perhaps." Ryan didn't understand the comment, but he didn't want to seem foolish by asking. The waiter appeared beside the table. "Good evening. Have you decided?" Ryan looked at the menu on the table. He picked one up, opened it. The prices made his stomach clench. $60 for an appetizer, $120 for an entree. He had $240 in his pocket for the entire month. I'm still deciding," he said, buying time. "Could we have some wine while we decide?" the woman suggested, looking at the waiter. "Certainly. We have an excellent selection. May I suggest this Argentine Malbec, a 2018 vintage, very balanced?" "Perfect," she said, without looking at the price. Ryan looked. $280 a bottle, more than he had in his wallet. The waiter walked away. She looked at him attentively, not judgmentally, with genuine curiosity. "Have you been waiting long?" Ryan asked, trying to break the heavy silence that had fallen between them. She tilted her head slightly, thoughtfully. "My whole life, perhaps." Ryan blinked. He hadn't expected that answer. He expected a "not really" or "about 15 minutes." But that had a different weight, a meaning he couldn't decipher. "I don't understand," she smiled. That way some people smile when they say something profound, but know the other person won't grasp the deeper meaning. "It doesn't matter. Just a silly thought. Tell me about yourself. What do you do?" Ryan hesitated. The first question, the one that always made him shrink. "I work at an auto shop, and I pick up some odd cleaning jobs at night to make ends meet." He expected to see her smile disappear. He expected to see disinterest. It's what he always saw when he told the truth, but she just nodded, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "That must be tiring. 2 jobs. "It is, but it's what I have to do. I have a son, Ethan, 12 years old. I need to provide the best for him." Her eyes lit up, not with pity, with something warmer, tenderness perhaps. "Are you a single father?" "Widower. My wife passed away 2 years ago. Cancer." "I'm so sorry." And she really seemed to be. It wasn't that automatic "I'm sorry" that people say because it's what's expected. It was genuine. There was real empathy there. The waiter returned with the wine. He showed her the label, and she nodded in approval without really looking. He opened the bottle with practiced movements, poured a little into her glass for her to taste. She took a small sip. "It's excellent." The waiter filled both glasses and walked away. Ryan picked up his, sniffed it. He had no idea how to appreciate wine. He'd drunk beer his whole life, and cheap liquor on some birthdays. But wine like this, expensive, was unknown territory. He took a sip. It was strong, bitter, different from anything he'd ever tasted. He tried not to make a face. She noticed the effort and smiled, but not mockingly. Sweetly. "You don't have to pretend you like it." Ryan chuckled awkwardly. "It's very different. I'm not used to it. I didn't like it at first either. It's an acquired taste. But we force ourselves because it's what's expected, you know. It's funny how we do so many things just because they're expected of us." There was a melancholy in those words. Ryan felt it, but he didn't know how to respond. So he took another sip. This time it was less shocking. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you do?" She hesitated. It was the first time he'd seen hesitation in her, as if she was carefully choosing her words. I work in administration, family matters. It's complicated." "Family is always complicated," Ryan said, trying to be supportive. "Isn't yours?" "Not much of one. My parents have already passed away. I have a sister, but we hardly speak. She lives in another state. It's basically Ethan and I against the world. You must be very close." "We are. He's a good kid. Smart, likes video games, computers, lives in that virtual world. Sometimes I don't understand anything he says." She laughed. It was a soft, musical laugh. Ryan liked the sound. Kids are like that. They grow up in a different world than ours. "Do you have children?" "No, never have." There was something there. A hint of sadness, of regret. Ryan didn't want to delve deeper. It wasn't his business. The waiter returned. "Have you decided what you'll order?" Ryan looked at the menu again. All the dishes were expensive. Very expensive. He thought fast. If he ordered the cheapest thing, the wine alone would consume almost all his money. There wouldn't be anything left for Ethan's grocery bill. Nothing left for the gas bill. Actually, I'm not very hungry," he lied. "I ate before I came." She looked at him, straight into his eyes, as if she were reading right through him. And then she did something unexpected. "You know, I'm not hungry either, but could we order something to snack on? Perhaps a charcuterie board?" The waiter seemed disappointed, but made a note. "Certainly. Any preferences?" "Whatever comes. The chef's suggestion is fine." When the waiter walked away, she leaned slightly across the table, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You don't have to pretend with me. I know the prices here are absurd." Ryan felt his face flush. Humiliation. Shame. He'd been found out. I'm sorry. I didn't know it would be so expensive. Andrew said it was a nice place, and—" "Who is Andrew?" Ryan paused. He looked at her. She had a confused expression. "My friend. He's the one who set up this date. With you. I mean, his girlfriend knows you, so—" "I don't know any Andrew, or his girlfriend." The silence that fell between them was thick, heavy. Ryan felt his heart beating faster. Something was wrong. "But aren't you here for a date?" "I am, but not with you." The words took a while to make sense in Ryan's head. When they did, he felt the ground vanish beneath him. "Wait, so you're not Chloe?" "No, my name is Helen." "Crap." Ryan looked up, scanning the restaurant. His original table, table 12. It was empty. He looked at the table where he was now. There was a small golden number, 21. "I sat at the wrong table," he said, more to himself than to her. "It seems so." He was about to stand up, to apologize profusely, and run out of there when she placed her hand over his. The touch was soft but firm. "You don't have to go." "But you're waiting for someone. Your real date. He can wait. There was something in her eyes at that moment, something Ryan couldn't name, defiance, weariness, hope. "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand, just stay, please, stay a little longer." Ryan looked at her hand on his. Her fingers were slender, well manicured, her nails had subtle polish, her skin was soft, unblemished, so different from his calloused, rough, grease-stained hands. But the touch was warm, real, and there was something in that moment, in that simple request, that made him sit down again. "Okay, I'll stay." She smiled, and this time the smile reached her eyes. The waiter brought the charcuterie board, cheeses Ryan didn't know the names of, thinly sliced meats, olives, jams. He placed it in the center of the table with a small bow. "Enjoy your meal." Helen served a little on Ryan's plate, then on hers. He ate slowly, savoring it. It was good, incredibly good, different from anything he ate at home. "Are you enjoying it?" she asked. "Very much. I've never—" He stopped. He didn't want to admit he'd never eaten food like this, that his daily life was basic meals like rice, eggs, and occasionally some chicken. But she seemed to understand even without him finishing the sentence. "The world is strange, isn't it?" she said, looking at her own wineglass. "There are people who eat this every day without a second thought. And there are people who work their whole lives and will never experience it. And we act as if that's normal, as if it's fair." Ryan didn't expect that kind of reflection. He stayed silent, processing. "You think about these things a lot?" he asked. "Lately, yes. I think we reach an age where we start to question everything. The meaning of things, why we do what we do, if we're truly living or just existing. I don't have much time to think about it. I wake up, work, come home, take care of Ethan, sleep, and it starts again. Doesn't that tire you?" "It does, but I don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice, it's just that some are harder than others." Ryan drank more wine. He was starting to like the taste, or maybe he was getting dizzy. Was it the third glass, or fourth? He'd lost count. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said, feeling more bold. "You can. Why did you ask me to stay? You don't even know me, and you have someone waiting for you." Helen took a moment to reply. She looked at her own hands, then at him. "Because when you sat here, for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to pretend anything. You don't look at me like I'm a prize to be won. You're not calculating what you can gain from me. You're not trying to impress me with made-up stories. You just are. And that's rare, rarer than you imagine." The words touched something in Ryan, something deep that he didn't know existed. "But I'm just a mechanic, a guy who barely makes ends meet. I have nothing to offer. You have yourself. And in this world where everyone is selling an edited version of themselves, that's everything." Ryan didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. He just looked at her, and she at him. And in that silence, something connected, something invisible but palpable, as if two souls who weren't meant to meet had recognized each other by chance. The moment was interrupted when her phone vibrated on the table. She looked at the screen. Her face changed. The magic broke. "It's him. My date." Ryan felt his stomach clench. Of course. She had someone waiting. The right someone. Someone from her world. She read the message. She sighed. "He's here. At table 12, where you were supposed to be." "I should go then." "You should." But neither of them moved. Helen looked at her phone, then at Ryan. There was a struggle happening behind those eyes, a decision being made. "Come with me," she said suddenly. "What?" "Get up. Come with me. Fast." She was already standing. She grabbed her purse. Ryan, confused, followed her. She walked quickly between the tables toward the back of the restaurant. There was a hallway leading to the restrooms and an emergency exit. She pushed the door. An alarm should have gone off, but it didn't. They stepped out into a narrow alley. The night was cold. The city noise enveloped them immediately. Ryan was stunned. "What are we doing?" Helen laughed, a loud, free laugh different from the restrained one inside the restaurant. "Running away." "Running away from what?" "Everything. Just for today. Just for a few hours. Let's pretend we're different people. Let's pretend there are no rules." "But the bill. It's already paid. I gave them my card when I arrived. Protocol. I always pay beforehand." Ryan didn't understand anything, but there was something contagious in her energy, in that sudden freedom. "Where are we going?" "I don't know. You decide. Take me somewhere that's yours, not mine." Yours, Ryan thought. He thought of all the sophisticated places he didn't know, that she probably frequented, and then he thought of the only place where he truly felt like himself. "There's a park, near my place. It's nothing fancy, but it's where I go when I need to think, when I need to breathe." "Then take me there." They caught a cab. Ryan insisted on paying, even though he knew he'd spend half of what he had. But he couldn't let her pay. Not after everything. It was a matter of honor, of dignity. The taxi driver looked in the rearview mirror, clearly confused by that pairing. A man in simple clothes and a woman with her bearing. But he said nothing. Just drove. The park was small, some worn wooden benches, a bandstand in the center that hadn't been used in years, a fountain that no longer spouted water, old trees whose roots cracked the sidewalks. There wasn't adequate lighting, just a few dim lampposts, but it was beautiful in its own way. It had history. It had soul. Ryan sat on one of the benches. Helen sat beside him. She took off her high heels, sighing in relief. My feet were killing me. Why do you wear them then? Because it's what's expected. Women in fancy restaurants wear heels. It's the rule. Silly rule. I agree. They sat in silence for a while. A comfortable silence. Not that heavy silence when you have nothing to say, but that silence when you don't need to say anything. A cold breeze blew. Helen shivered slightly. Ryan, without thinking, took off the old jacket he had brought and placed it over her shoulders. She looked at him, surprised. You'll get cold. I'll manage. Why do you do that? What? You're so thoughtful, without asking for anything in return. I don't know, I've always been that way. My mother used to say I was born with a heart too big for my chest. I always wanted to protect everyone, even when I couldn't. Helen pulled the jacket tighter, wrapping herself in it. It smelled of cheap soap and honest sweat. It was the most comforting smell she had felt in years. Tell me more about your son, she asked. Ryan smiled. It was impossible not to smile when he talked about Ethan. He's incredible, seriously. He's the best kid in the world, smart, funny, kind. After his mom died, he had to grow up too fast. He became my partner, you know? We do everything together. Cook, clean, do groceries. He never complained. Never blamed me for not being able to give him more. I'm sure he loves you very much. I hope so, because he's everything to me. The reason I wake up every day. The reason I endure everything. He's lucky to have you. Ryan shrugged. I'm the lucky one to have him. Without him, I think I would have given up when Megan passed away. I wouldn't have seen any point in going on. Helen looked at him. There was so much in that gaze. Admiration, sadness, envy, perhaps. Have you ever loved someone like that? Ryan asked, in a way that it hurts just to think about losing them. Once, or I thought I did. But it wasn't real love. It was convenience. It was security. It wasn't that intense thing you describe. Why did you stay then? Because it was what was expected, because it was the right path, but in the end he left me anyway. For someone younger, more available, someone who understood his world better. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was liberating, actually. It showed me that I was living a life that wasn't mine. Ryan wanted to ask more, about her world, about who she really was. But he was afraid that reality would destroy that magical moment. Can I ask you something? He said hesitantly. Always. Who are you? Really? Because I know you're not just someone who works in administration. There's something more. I feel it. Helen was silent for so long that Ryan thought she wouldn't answer. But then she spoke, her voice low, almost inaudible. My family has money. A lot of money. My father built an empire, real estate, investments, companies. When he died, he left everything to me and my siblings. I manage part of the business, but not by choice, by obligation. Ryan felt his stomach clench. Of course she came from that world. The way she spoke, her gestures, her discreet but expensive clothes. It all made sense now. That's why you were at that expensive restaurant. Yes, a date arranged by my mother, with the son of a business partner. Another in a series of dates she organizes trying to marry me off to someone of the same social standing, as if love were a business transaction. And why do you go, if you don't want to? Because it's easier than fighting, because I'm tired, Ryan, tired of arguing, tired of disappointing everyone. So I go, I pretend, I smile, and then I go back to my empty house and cry alone. The words came out raw, honest. Helen had tears in her eyes but didn't let them fall. Ryan wanted to hug her, to tell her it was all right, but he didn't dare. He didn't have that right. "You don't have to live like this," he said softly. "And how should I live? Like you, working yourself to exhaustion for pennies, not knowing if you'll have money for next month's rent." There was no venom in the words, just brutal honesty. "At least I sleep in peace," Ryan replied. "At least I know I'm free. Poor, tired, worn out, but free." Helen looked at him. And then she did something neither of them expected. She took his hand, intertwined their fingers. Her hand was soft, but her grip was firm, desperate even. "I wish I had your courage. It's not courage, it's necessity. I don't have a choice. But you choose to be good, even when it would be easier to be bitter, even when the world gives you every reason to give up. You choose to get up and keep going. That's courage." Ryan didn't know what to answer, so he just squeezed her hand back. And they sat there, on that old bench in a forgotten park, two impossible worlds touching for a few stolen hours. "I don't want this night to end," Helen whispered. "Me neither. But it will, won't it? It will. And we'll go back to our lives, and this will just become a memory. A good memory, at least." Helen leaned her head on his shoulder. Ryan tensed for a second, then relaxed. He smelled her hair, an expensive perfume mixed with the scent of the night. "Thank you," she said. "For what? For sitting at the wrong table, for staying, for showing me that there's still something real in the world. Thank you, for not sending me away, for seeing beyond the old clothes and the grease-stained hands." They stayed like that for a long time. How long? Half an hour? An hour? They lost track, until her phone vibrated. She looked, she sighed. "My mother. She wants to know why I left the restaurant without speaking to the guy. Will you be in trouble? Always. But I'm used to it." She stood up, gave him his jacket back, put on her shoes. Ryan stood up too. He didn't want to. He wanted to stay there forever. But the real world was calling. "Can I take you home?" he offered. "No, it's better not to. It would be complicated." "I understand." Lie. He didn't understand, but he accepted. Helen looked at him. There was so much she wanted to say, so much she wanted to do, but she couldn't. So she just smiled. That smile that lasts less than a second but leaves an eternal mark. "Goodbye, Ryan." "Goodbye, Helen." She turned, walked towards the main street. Ryan stood still, watching her walk away. Each step of hers was a pang in his heart. When she turned the corner and disappeared, he felt a void so great he almost couldn't breathe. He walked home, his feet heavy, his heart even heavier. He entered in silence. Ethan was already asleep. He went to his room, lay down without taking off his clothes. He stared at the ceiling, thinking of her, the way she laughed, the touch of her hand, the words they said, and the ones they didn't say. He knew he would never see her again. He knew it had been a stolen moment in time, a beautiful mistake of fate. But even knowing, he couldn't erase the silly smile that insisted on appearing. It had been real. For a few hours it had been absurdly real, and that, in a way, was enough. The days that followed were strange. Ryan woke up, worked, came home. The routine was the same as always, but something had changed inside him. It was as if he had tasted a different world, and now his own seemed grayer, smaller. Ethan noticed. "Dad, you're different." "Different how?" "I don't know. More distant. Like you're thinking about something else all the time." Ryan tried to smile. "It's just tiredness, son. Tough week." But it wasn't tiredness, it was longing. Longing for someone he barely knew, longing for a possibility, longing for what could have been if the world were different. At the auto shop, Andrew asked about the date. "So, man, how was it with Chloe?" Ryan was silent for a second. How to explain that he had sat at the wrong table, that he had met someone else, that he had lived the most intense night of his life and was now stuck with this feeling? "It didn't work out, we weren't a match." "Ah, too bad. But relax, there are others out there." Ryan nodded, but said nothing more. He didn't want others. He wanted her. That impossible woman who had entered his life by accident and left, leaving a void. At night, when he was alone in his room, he would pick up his phone. He looked for her on social media. Helen and common surnames. Thousands appeared. None of them were her. Or maybe it was, and he didn't recognize her. Maybe she didn't even have social media. Rich people sometimes live more privately. A week passed, then 2. Life went on. Ethan had a test at school. Ryan fixed 3 cars at the auto shop. Paid the rent on the last day before cutoff. Bought groceries for the month, all normal, all common. But inside, a part of him was still in that park, on that bench, holding her hand. Helen hadn't forgotten either. She returned to her large, empty house. 3 stories, 6 bedrooms, a pool she never used. She had a housekeeper, a gardener, a driver, but she was always alone. On the first night, she cried. Cried like she hadn't cried in years, not out of sadness, out of clarity, for finally understanding what she had been missing her whole life, chasing things that didn't matter. Her mother called her the next day. She was furious. "You embarrassed me. Mark said you didn't show up at the table, that you disappeared." "I wasn't feeling well, Mom." "You're sabotaging your own life, Helen. He was a good match. A traditional family, a successful businessman. But I don't love him. Love. Love is a luxury for the poor, Helen. People like us marry for strategy, to build something together. Love comes later, or it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Then you'll die alone. Is that what you want?" Helen hung up the phone. She no longer had the energy for that conversation. She'd had the same conversation thousands of times, and she always gave in, always did what was expected of her. But this time, something had changed. She had tasted freedom. She had felt what genuine connection was, and now she couldn't pretend anymore. She tried to go back to her routine, meetings with lawyers, signing documents, dinner with the family, all mechanical, all empty. She looked at the people around her and saw masks. She saw rehearsed performances. She saw people living lives that weren't their own. At night, when she was alone in her immense bedroom, she thought of him. The simple way he spoke, the brutal honesty of his words, the calloused hands that held hers with such care. She thought of the forgotten park, the old bench, the feeling of finally being in the right place. She picked up her phone, opened Instagram, searched. Ryan and mechanic, and the city. A few profiles appeared. None of them were him. Or maybe it was, and she wasn't sure. How do you look for someone when you don't know their full last name? When you have no information beyond a name and a profession? A month later, she returned to the restaurant. She didn't know why. Perhaps a foolish hope that he would be there. That fate would be generous twice. She sat at the same table, table 21, ordered the same wine. She sat there waiting. Waiting for what? She didn't know. A miracle. A sign. The waiter recognized her. "You've returned, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you with us again. Are you waiting for someone?" Helen looked at the empty table in front of her. She looked at table 12, where someone else was now dining, and then she looked at the waiter. "No, I'm alone." "May I bring you the menu?" "Just the wine. Thank you." She stayed there for an hour, drinking slowly, watching people, lovers, families celebrating, friends laughing, and she was there, alone, as always. When she left, she stopped in the alley where they had fled that night. The emergency exit now had a padlock. There was no way out through there anymore. Fate had closed that door, literally and figuratively. Ryan also returned, not to the restaurant. He didn't have the money for that. But to the park. He went there when Ethan slept, sat on the same bench. He stayed there in the dark, remembering. One night Andrew followed him, sat beside him. "Man, you have to tell me what happened that night. You haven't been the same since." Ryan was silent. After a while he told him. He told him everything. The wrong table, Helen, the conversation, the escape, the park, the goodbye. Andrew listened without interrupting. When Ryan finished, he sighed. "Man, that's a hell of a story. But you know it's impossible, right? People like her and people like you. It doesn't work out. I know. Then why are you torturing yourself? Because for the first time in years I felt alive, I felt seen. Not as the mechanic, not as the single father, but as me, as Ryan. And now I know what I'm missing. I know what I could have. And that hurts more than not knowing. Andrew put a hand on his friend's shoulder. You'll get over it, man. It hurts now, but with time. I don't want to get over it. I want to remember. I want to carry this pain because it reminds me that I'm still capable of feeling, that I'm still human. The two sat there in silence. There was nothing more to say. Months passed, winter arrived. Ryan bought a new coat for Ethan. The boy was growing fast. Soon he would be taller than him. Soon he would have his own life. And Ryan would be alone again. But it was okay. That's how life worked. Helen also moved on. She accepted fewer arranged dates, disappointed her mother more. She started making decisions for herself, for the first time. Small decisions. She refused a business deal she found unethical. She donated money to a non-profit organization supporting underprivileged families. She started frequenting simpler places, neighborhood coffee shops, public parks, looking for something, without knowing exactly what. One day, 6 months after that night, she was in a grocery store, not the one she usually went to, a simpler, cheaper one. She wanted to feel normal for a moment. She was choosing fruits when she heard a voice. Dad, can we buy that chocolate? Ethan likes it. She froze. That voice. She knew that voice. She turned slowly. It was him. Ryan. He was in the next aisle pushing a cart. Beside him, a boy. It must have been Ethan. He looked like his father. The same eyes, the same manner. Helen's heart pounded. She wanted to go to him. She wanted to shout his name. She wanted to run and hug him and say that she had thought of him every single day. But she stood still, frozen. Because what would she say? Hi, remember me? The woman you met by mistake 6 months ago. It seemed crazy. Ryan picked up the chocolate, put it in the cart. He looked at something on the shelf, and then, as if feeling observed, he turned his head. Their eyes met. The world stopped. He recognized her. She saw it on his face. The surprise, the confusion, and then something more. That same connection. It was still there, still real. Helen smiled. A small, nervous smile. Ryan smiled back. Dad, who's that lady? Ethan had noticed. Ryan looked at his son, then at her. She's a friend. He walked towards her. Each step seemed to last an eternity. When he stood in front of her, they were silent. So many things to say. No words seemed sufficient. Hi, he said finally. Hi, she replied. It's been a while. 6 months. You're counting? Every day. Ryan didn't know what to say to that. Ethan looked between the two of them, clearly curious. I thought of you, Helen said, her voice low. Every day, every night. I thought of going back to that restaurant, of looking for you. But I didn't know your last name. I didn't know where to find you. Me too, I looked, but you're a ghost, Helen, no last name, an apparition. Smith, Helen Smith, Ryan Miller. They smiled. It was silly. Formal introductions after all that. But it was necessary. It was real. This is Ethan, Ryan said, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. Nice to meet you, Ethan. Your dad talks about you a lot. He does? The boy looked at his father, surprised. He does. He said you're the reason he wakes up every day. Ethan blushed but smiled. They stood there, the three of them, in the middle of the grocery store aisle. People passed, looked, and moved on. But they were in a bubble, in a world of their own. Do you have time for coffee? Helen asked. There's a coffee shop nearby. Ryan looked at Ethan. The boy shrugged as if to say, Why not? We do. They went together. A simple neighborhood coffee shop, plastic tables, freshly brewed coffee, warm pastries. Helen felt more at home there than in any five-star restaurant. They talked. Ryan recounted the past few months. Ethan talked about school. Helen spoke less but listened more, and she observed. She observed the relationship between father and son, the affection, the complicity, the pure and true love. When coffee was over, they walked out together. The sun was setting. The sky had that orange-red hue that signals the end of the day. "It was good to see you," Ryan said. "It was good to see you too. Could we do this again? I don't know. Meet for coffee or something else?" Helen wanted to say yes, wanted to shout yes, but reality hit. Their different worlds, their responsibilities, the impossibilities. "Ryan, I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why?" "Because it will hurt. It will hurt more every time we see each other and then have to separate again. Because I'll want more, and you'll want more, and we can't have more." "Why not?" "Because I come from a world that doesn't accept you, and you come from a world where I don't belong, and in between we'll just hurt each other." Ryan took a deep breath. He knew she was right, but he didn't want to accept it. What if we don't care about the world? What if we just do try? Try what? Dating? A relationship? "Ryan, you have a son. You have responsibilities. I have a family that will disown me if I show up with someone who isn't of the same social standing." The words hurt, but they were true. "Someone like me," Ryan finished. "A mechanic. A poor man." "It's not about that, it's about—" "It is. It's exactly about that." Helen had tears in her eyes. "I didn't want it to be like this. But it is." Ethan, who had been quiet, listening to everything, finally spoke. "Dad, can I say something?" "Of course, son. If you like her and she likes you, why don't you guys try? Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, people are going to talk. But at least you tried. It's better than wondering what if for the rest of your lives." From the mouth of a child, the wisest words. Ryan looked at Helen. She looked back. And in that look there was a question, an invitation, a risk. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too, but maybe we can be scared together." She smiled, tears streaming down, but smiling. "Okay, let's try." Ryan took her hand, intertwined their fingers, like that first night. Ethan smiled, satisfied. "But it won't be easy," Helen warned. "Nothing worthwhile is easy." And there, on that neighborhood street, as the sun finished setting, two impossible worlds decided to try the impossible, knowing it could go wrong, knowing they would face judgment, but also knowing that some connections are too rare to let go. Because in the end, true love isn't about ease. It's about choice. It's about looking at all the reasons why it shouldn't work and choosing to try anyway. The months that followed were difficult. As Helen had predicted, her family didn't accept it. Her mother stopped speaking to her. Her siblings tried to convince her she was making a mistake. Some friends drifted away. Ryan also faced challenges. He felt inferior whenever he was in her world, at dinners with people who earned in a day what he earned in a year. In conversations about investments and business that he didn't understand, he felt like an imposter. But Helen always held his hand, always reminded him that he was more real than anyone else in that room. And that helped. Ethan adored Helen from day one. She treated him with respect, not condescension. She was genuinely interested in his things. She played video games with him, helped with homework. She naturally became part of the family. A year later, Helen made the most difficult decision of her life. She sold her share in the family businesses. She took the money and invested in things that made sense to her. She opened a non-profit organization that supported underprivileged families. She offered vocational training courses. She helped people like Ryan to have better opportunities. She bought a smaller house, simple, in a regular neighborhood, near Ryan's house. Her mother almost had a fit. But Helen was happy, truly happy, for the first time in her life. Ryan continued working at the auto shop. He refused her money when she offered. He had pride. He wanted to support his family his own way. But he accepted when she insisted on paying for a better trade school course for him. "It's not charity, it's an investment," she said, and he believed her. They married 2 years later, in a small ceremony, in the park where they had sat that first night, on the same bench, with Ethan as the best man, Andrew as a witness, a few true friends. Her family wasn't there. Her mother didn't come. Her siblings didn't either. But Helen didn't care. She had found her true family, Ryan and Ethan. And that was more than enough. On their wedding night, lying in bed, she said, "You know what's funny?" "What?" "If you had sat at the right table that day, we would never have met, never would have had this." Ryan smiled. Sometimes the best things in life come from mistakes. "So you think it worked out then, despite everything?" "Look around you, look at me, look at Ethan sleeping in the next room. Do you still doubt it?" She smiled. She leaned her head on his chest. She heard his heart beating strong and steady. "No, I don't doubt it." "Then yes, it worked out more than perfectly. It was perfect." Years passed. They had a child together, a girl, Mary. Helen insisted on the name. It was the name of Ryan's grandmother, whom he adored. Ethan grew up, went to college, studied engineering. He came home every weekend for dinner with the family, always brought his girlfriend, a simple neighborhood girl whom Helen immediately adored. The non-profit grew. It helped hundreds of families. It changed lives. Helen found purpose. Ryan continued working, but now he had his own auto shop. Small, but his. Ethan helped him in his free time. Helen's mother never completely made amends. But years later, when she fell ill, it was Helen who took care of her. Without resentment, without demanding anything, with love, even when it wasn't reciprocated. And one day, when the old woman was close to passing, she held her daughter's hand and whispered, "I was wrong. You chose right." Those were the only words of approval Helen needed to hear. Ryan never forgot that first night. The nervousness, the damp shirt, the wrong table, her gaze, the conversation, the park, the bench. Every single day when he woke up beside her, he silently thanked fate for that mistake. Because that mistake had been the most right thing in his life. Helen remembered too. She remembered the expensive wine he pretended to like, the calloused hands that held hers with so much tenderness, the old jacket that smelled of honest work, everything she didn't know she was looking for until she found it. One night, 30 years after that first one, when they were both old and grey, they sat together on the porch of their house. Mary was already an adult, married, and had given them grandchildren. Ethan too. The family had grown, multiplied, flourished. "Do you regret it?" Ryan asked suddenly. "Regret what?" "Choosing me, giving up everything for a simpler life." Helen looked at him. Her eyes still had that sparkle. After decades, they still sparkled when they looked at him. "Are you kidding? That was the only intelligent decision I ever made. But you could have had so much more. Married someone rich, traveled the world, lived in luxury. Ryan, I had everything. I had you. I had our children. I had a life with meaning. I had true love. That is infinitely more valuable than any luxury. Luxury is cold. Luxury is empty. But this right here," she pointed to the backyard where their grandchildren were playing, "this is real, this remains." Ryan pulled her close, kissed her forehead, a long kiss full of gratitude. "I love you." Helen Smith Miller. "I love you, Ryan Miller." And they sat there watching the sun set, exactly as they had 30 years ago. But this time, they didn't have to separate. They didn't have to say goodbye. Because they had chosen the impossible. And the impossible had become the most beautiful reality they could imagine. True love, they discovered, doesn't need ease. It needs courage. It needs choice. It needs two idiots willing to risk everything for a wrong table and a stolen moment from fate. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world rewards that courage, with a lifetime, with a family, with a love that spans decades and remains strong. Because in the end, it's not about the money you have or the social position you hold. It's about the hands you hold, the voices that make you smile, the hearts that beat with yours. It's about finding someone who sees you, truly sees you, beyond the clothes, beyond the job, beyond everything superficial, and deciding together that it's worth more than anything. Ryan never imagined when he nervously walked into that restaurant late that that night would completely change his life. That a simple table error would become the foundation of everything he would build afterward. Helen never imagined, when she saw that man with the wrinkled shirt and calloused hands sit in front of her, that she was looking at the love of her life, the father of her children, the companion for all the decades to come. But life is like that. Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in crumpled paper. Sometimes love arrives through the back door. Sometimes the right person is at the wrong table. And when that happens, when fate gives you this gift disguised as an accident, you have two choices. Let it pass and wonder what if for the rest of your life. Or grab it with both hands and never let go, no matter what the world says. Ryan and Helen chose to grab it, and never, not for a second, regretted it. Because maybe true love doesn't need to last eternally on the calendar, but when it does, when it chooses to last, when it fights to last against all odds, it becomes eternal in other ways. In the memories, in the stories the family tells, in the grandchildren who play in the backyard, in the legacy of courage it leaves behind. And maybe, just maybe, that's what matters. Not where you started, but where you chose to arrive, and with whom you chose to arrive there. If this story touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be remembered.